The room went silent when my sister Amber slammed her fork down and snapped, "Stacy, stop asking for money like a beggar." Everyone froze. Even the turkey seemed to stop steaming. My cheeks burned as laughter broke out around the table. My parents didn't say a word. They just looked down, embarrassed, or maybe proud of her for finally saying what they all secretly thought. If you've ever been humiliated by family, hit that subscribe, like, and share button, because this story will hit deep. I swallowed hard, pretending her words didn't sting. The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon pie turned bitter in my mouth. I wasn't even asking for money. I was asking her to return my $200 she borrowed for her emergency. But Amber had a gift, twisting every story until I looked like the problem. She leaned back in her chair, smirking. "You're always struggling, Stacy. Maybe stop chasing your little dreams and get a real job." My hands tightened under the table. If only she knew the truth, that for the past 3 years, I'd been quietly paying off her $52,800 credit card debt, just to protect her from bankruptcy and keep her family from losing their home. I had done it out of love, out of loyalty, but at that moment, watching her mock me in front of everyone, something inside me snapped. I smiled, not because I was okay, but because I suddenly realized how blind they all were. They saw me as the broke sister with no future, but I was holding the receipts that could shatter their entire illusion. Amber raised her glass and said, "To family, especially the ones who still haven't grown up." Everyone laughed again. But I stayed silent, watching her fake confidence crack with every sip. Because she had no idea that the payment due next week, the one she couldn't afford, would expose everything she'd been hiding, and I wasn't planning to stay silent anymore. Amber's laughter echoed in my ears long after dinner ended. I stayed seated, pretending to scroll through my phone while everyone moved to the living room for dessert. My heart was pounding, but not from embarrassment anymore, from the fire building inside me. They thought I was weak, broke, and desperate, but tonight I decided they'd finally see the truth. Mom called from the kitchen. "Stacy, don't forget to help clean up, honey." I forced a smile. "Sure, Mom." My sister's designer heels clicked across the tile as she followed Dad to the couch. I could hear her bragging about her new investment property. Funny thing was, I knew the mortgage was 3 months behind, and the only reason her credit hadn't collapsed was because of my silent payments. As I stacked the plates, Amber's husband, Rick, leaned toward me. "You still working that flower shop job?" He smirked. "Must be hard making ends meet." I wanted to laugh in his face. They had no idea I now owned 3 online stores, and that tiny flower job was how I'd funded my business in the first place. I took a deep breath and joined them in the living room. The same smug faces that had once called me a failure were now living comfortably because I'd protected their secrets. But not anymore. Amber looked at me and said, "You should really learn to manage money better, sis. It's embarrassing watching you struggle." That's when I opened my phone, tapped my banking app, and turned the screen toward her. Her smile vanished as she saw her own name listed in the transaction history. Monthly payments labeled Amber Credit Relief. Her eyes widened. "What is this?" she whispered. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "That's what your $52,800 in debt looks like. The one I've been paying for 3 years while you played the perfect princess." Her hands started shaking. You're lying." But before she could spin another excuse, Dad asked, "What's going on?" And just like that, every pair of eyes in the room turned toward us. Amber's fake smile crumbled. I smiled sweetly. "Oh, nothing major. Just showing Amber where her Thanksgiving money really came from." The room fell dead silent. Amber's face turned white. And I knew this was only the beginning, because the real shock wasn't just the money. It was how I earned it. Amber's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her perfectly rehearsed confidence had vanished. I could see the panic behind her fake lashes. My father cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Stacy, what do you mean you've been paying for her?" I smiled calmly, enjoying the silence that followed. "Exactly what it sounds like, Dad. While you were all busy calling me a failure, I was quietly helping Amber clear her $52,800 debt. You know, the one she pretended didn't exist? Mom looked confused. That can't be true. Amber has a good job. She drives a Tesla, I nodded. Yes, Mom, she does. And she bought that Tesla using a maxed-out credit card she couldn't pay off. She came to me crying 3 years ago, saying she'd lose her house if I didn't help. I didn't want to see her kids suffer, so I paid it off bit by bit, every month from my business income. Amber shot up from the couch, shaking her head. Don't listen to her. She's just jealous because she's broke. She's making this up. But I wasn't done. I opened another app, my business dashboard, and projected it on the living room TV using Bluetooth. The room lit up with numbers. My earnings for the last quarter, $384 to $200. Gasps filled the room. Even Rick's jaw dropped. While you were all laughing at my little flower business, I built 3 online stores. I sell eco-home decor, candles, and floral designs across 42 states. You all thought I was struggling, but I was just investing and paying off Amber's mess. Mom's hand covered her mouth. Dad leaned back, stunned. You made all that by yourself? I nodded slowly. Yes, without anyone's help. And the best part? I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because I thought family had each other's backs. But clearly, I was the only one who believed that. Amber's voice cracked. Why would you even help me if you hated me? I looked straight at her. Because I didn't hate you, Amber. I pitied you. But now I just want the truth out. Everyone sat frozen, except Rick, who was now staring at Amber like he'd just met her for the first time. And that's when the real twist hit. Something none of them saw coming, because the debt wasn't the only secret I'd been covering for Amber. There was one more. The reason her husband might just walk out tonight. Amber's voice trembled. What do you mean, another secret? Her face went pale, her confidence evaporating faster than the wine in her glass. Rick turned toward her, suspicion already in his eyes. Amber, what's she talking about? I leaned back, crossing my arms. Should I tell them, Amber? Or do you want to? She shook her head rapidly. There's nothing to tell. Stacy's just trying to embarrass me. I gave a faint smile. Embarrass you? No. I'm just tired of keeping your lies. I pulled my phone again, swiping to a folder labeled Amber Files. One tap, and a photo flashed on the TV. A luxury vacation in Miami, a hotel bill under Amber's name, and another man's hand holding hers across the table. Rick's face dropped. What the hell is this? Amber jumped up, shouting, It's fake! She's lying. I stood, my tone calm but sharp. No, I'm not. While I was paying off your debt, you were spending money on weekend trips. With your so-called business partner, you maxed your cards again to cover the expenses. The same cards I paid. Off. The room went dead silent except for the ticking clock. My mom gasped softly, tears pooling in her eyes. Dad looked furious but speechless. And Rick, he just stared at Amber like he couldn't recognize her anymore. Amber stepped forward, her voice breaking. You don't understand, Stacy. I was under so much pressure. Rick was never around, and I cut her off coldly. So you cheated, lied, and let me pay for it all? You called me a beggar tonight, Amber, but I was the only one holding your world together. Her hands shook as she whispered, Please don't do this in front of everyone. I tilted my head. You humiliated me in front of everyone. Seems fair to return the favor. Rick stood up suddenly, eyes filled with betrayal. You used her money to cover your affair? All while mocking her? Amber reached for him, but he stepped back. Don't touch me. The entire family sat frozen, no one daring to move or speak. I didn't feel angry anymore, just free. For years I'd been the silent helper, the easy target. But now, the truth was louder than their laughter ever was. As Amber sank into her chair, sobbing, I whispered, You told me to stop asking for money. Amber, don't worry, I never will again. Then I turned toward my parents, tears threatening to fall. You all believed I was the disappointment. But maybe disappointment isn't about money. Maybe it's about character. The room was silent. But the night wasn't over yet, because my next move would leave everyone speechless. The room felt heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Amber sat frozen, her face buried in her hands. Rick stood by the door, silent and shattered. My parents looked between us, as if their entire understanding of our family had just collapsed. But I wasn't done yet. Not until the truth had cleared every shadow left in this room. I took a deep breath and said quietly, "You all always saw me as the weak one, the failure who couldn't keep up. But while you judged, I built something you couldn't even imagine." I pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. My dad frowned and opened it. Inside were the property deeds for Amber's house. Mom gasped. "Stacy, what is this?" I smiled softly. When Amber's mortgage was collapsing, I didn't just pay off her debt. I bought the house in my name to keep the bank from taking it. She's been living in my property for the past 2 years. Amber's head shot up, her eyes wide with disbelief. You own my house?" I nodded. "I didn't plan to tell you. I wanted you to have time to get back on your feet. But after tonight, I think it's time you learned who really held the keys." Rick turned to her, shaking his head. "You mocked her, while she literally owned your home?" He laughed bitterly. "Wow, you deserve every bit of this." Amber's lip quivered. "Stacy, please, don't kick us out." "I'll do anything," I sighed. "I'm not cruel, Amber. I'm just done being silent. You'll stay in that house. But from now on, you'll treat me with the respect I deserved years ago." She nodded slowly, tears streaking her mascara. For the first time, there was no pride in her voice. "I'm sorry," Mom wiped her eyes. "Stacy, we had no idea. We were wrong about you." I smiled, my voice steady. "You didn't have to believe in me, Mom. I believed in myself, and that was enough." The next morning, I packed my things and left that house with a heart lighter than it had felt in years. My phone buzzed nonstop. Amber's apologies, Mom's messages, even Rick thanking me for being the only honest one. But I didn't reply. Some stories don't need words, just peace. As I walked out into the crisp Thanksgiving morning, I whispered to myself, they called me poor, but I was the one holding everything together. And for the first time ever, that felt richer than money. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Sometimes the person you mock is the one keeping your world from falling apart.